The 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, Tensin Gyatzo, is a stalwart of dharmic spiritual traditions. In this video, I am discussing why India should award him the BharatRatna, India's highest civilian honor. Before discussing this topic, we have to understand the history of Dalai Lama and Tibet a little bit. Tibet is a plateau sandwiched between two great ancient civilizations of the world, Indian and Chinese. The plateau is situated at a height of approximately 14,000 feet from above the mean sea level. Tibet is also the water reservoir of the entire South Asia. Big rivers like Ganga, Brahmaputra and Mekong all originates from Tibet. This also means that whoever is controlling Tibet controls the water resources of South Asia. Tibet has a recorded history that dates back to BC 127. The ancient religion of Tibet is an indigenous animistic thought called the Bon religion. Later, between the 6th and 9th century, Tibet imported Buddhism from India. Tibet maintained complete political autonomy when the Ming dynasty was ruling China until the 17th century. During this period, Tibet was transforming itself into a peaceful and spiritual land under the influence of Buddhism. The non-violence preached by Buddhism was imbibed to the extent that Tibet disbanded its army. The pacifist nature of Tibet was exploited by the British in the beginning of 20th century. They invaded Tibet in 1904. They wanted to stop the Russians from invading the colonial British Indian Empire. Because of the mighty Himalayas on India's northern borders, there were only 2 points along which the Russians could invade India: Afghanistan and Tibet. Therefore, the British wanted to exert control over Tibet and wants to convert it into a buffer state between Russia and India. When China became an independent country in 1949 under the Communist Party, it started laying claims on Tibet. Finally, China invaded Tibet in 1951. The invasion resulted in the death of nearly 1 lakh Tibetans and also the migration of Dalai Lama along with his followers to India in 1959. Dalai Lama was accorded a warm welcome in India as Prime Minister himself met him. The Tibetans were also allowed to set up a Tibetan government in exile in Dharmashala, Himachal Pradesh. There are multiple reasons for me to think that this is the right time to award BharatRatna to Dalai Lama. First of all, India has already recognized Dalai Lama as a distinguished state guest back in 1959 itself. Later, Dalai Lama went on to win the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize in 1989. Dalai Lama is also recognized world over as the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism, which has its roots in India. In that way, he is also a cultural ambassador of India and an epitome of India's welcoming nature and non-violence. Many other countries, such as France, has already recognized him as a citizen of honor. Recently, a parliamentary forum of Indian MPs has asked the government of India to confer BharatRatna on Dalai Lama. According to them, doing so would reassert India's moral support to Tibet. But the most important reason is strategic with respect to China. China has a policy called the One China policy. That means any country which wants to establish a diplomatic relation with China has to recognize that Tibet and Taiwan are inalienable parts of China. But at the same time, China doesn't recognize the territorial sovereignty of India over Aksai Chin region and Arunachal Pradesh. China claims that these regions are part of the southern Tibet. Now, by recognizing the spiritual and political leader of Tibet, India can send a clear message to China that its hypocritical and bullying attitude will no longer be appreciated.